Hi, this is the voice of Heidie Calero with another fascinating economic capsule on Puerto Rico's economy. Today we have entitled this economic capsule as Flawed Economic Forecast. And you may think this is a dry topic. Why talk about this? It's not affecting me. Well, you are wrong. It is going to affect you. It's going to affect your sons, your daughters, and even your grandchildren, because the debt service on the debt that is really being negotiated now and which will be submitted to the Judge Taylor Swain in November of 2021 will be impacting if all these debtors agree, creditors agree on this package of the adjustment of the public debt service in Puerto Rico. It's going to really command a hefty chunk of fiscal revenues that you and I are going to pay. And I'm going to show you what inflation, which was discussed in our previous economic capsule of last week, how inflation is impacting these flawed economic forecasts. As you see here on the screen, I am depicting for you the inflation rates based on the Consumer Price Index published by the Department of Labor, be it in Puerto Rico or in the US, regarding inflation from September 2020 through August of 2021, which is the latest figures that we have. The orange line is the US rates of inflation, and in Puerto Rico it's the blue lines. So for instance, the first that you see there, September of 2020, compare with September of 2019. In Puerto Rico told us that prices were not going up. On the contrary, they were declining, -1%, whereas in the States they were rising at the clip of 1.4%. Fast forward to March of 2021, and in Puerto Rico prices have been rising at a meager 1%, whereas in the States it's rearing its ugly head of 2.6%. Fast forward to August of 2021, and in Puerto Rico, they told us, yes, it's rising, 3.3%, but in the States, it's 5.3%. Even the chairman, Jerome Powell of the Federal Reserve, has indicated that this could still be very transitory, that it's due to all these disruptions in the distribution chains and all that is happening with China and not enough freights, not enough ships, all of that, which really has caused now, with the opening of the economy, a great increase in demand, and so prices are rising. But he still expects this to be transitory. But what does that mean for you and I in terms of Puerto Rico? Well, the Puerto Rico Oversight Board, PROMESA, has forecasted in the certified fiscal plans for the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, and that's where I'm going to highlight now, during the last three fiscal certified plans. One was in May 2019, as I am depicting here in this next graph. What are their forecasts for fiscal year 2022, which is the current fiscal year that Puerto Rico is right now undergoing, since our fiscal year starts July 1st and ends June 30th of 2022. Well, in May 2019 for fiscal year 2022, they said that inflation in Puerto Rico, they assumed it was 1.5%, and then GNP, real GNP growth, was only 0.2%. That's all. So if you add those two numbers, you can come up with a nominal GNP of 1.7%. Next year, in May 2020, again for the same fiscal year 2022, now they are forecasting that GNP real growth was -1.5%, even though the inflation was lower, 1.1%. So they are really declining on this nominal GNP to -0.4%. That's from one year to the next. Again, for the same fiscal year forecast of 2022. Now, fast forward to April 2021, which is the latest fiscal plan, certified fiscal plan of the board for the Commonwealth. And now they say oh, it's not negative 1.5% growth, real growth in the economy. It's going to be 1.5% real GNP growth, and inflation is the same as we forecasted last year, 1.1%. So if you add those two numbers, you come up with a nominal GNP growth of 2.6%. But let's connect this graph with the previous graph on inflation that I depicted. Suppose Puerto Rico's inflation rate stays at 3.3%, as it was in August of 2021, assuming that it just stays steady there, doesn't continue rising. Well, if we are now having an inflation of 3.3%, and we still assume that their forecast of 2.6% GNP growth was going to remain, if you subtract one from the other, GNP real growth now goes down negative 0.7%. And you know why this is important? Because the payment of the public debt, what is being negotiated now with all these creditors, and which will be submitted before Judge Taylor Swain in November of this year, is predicated on an economy that can pay for that debt service, because there's no point in agreeing to the debt adjustment when Puerto Rico cannot afford to pay that adjusted debt service. And that's our whole point today, that is really in doubt. And especially because the third graph that I'm depicting here is that not only is the economy going to be even more negative if inflation continues at that rate, but that population has continued declining. And these are the forecasts of the Fiscal Oversight Board, which really do not compare with what the census of 2020, for instance, told us, that it was 3.28 million people. They forecasted that for 2020 it was going to be 3.0 million, so they were short by about 270,000 people. And if you continue that fiscal year 2022, we have a population of 2.9 million people. So a declining economy in recession, a declining population, and the debt service on this, what they are forecasting, is again presented in these three fiscal certified plans. In May 2019, they said it was going to be 1.7 billion. In May 2020, despite the fact that they forecasted that GNP growth was going to be negative and that population was going to continue declining, they still left the debt service payment at $1.7 billion. And fast forward to April 2021, when the economy is still in negative territory and the population is almost 2.9 million, now they say, oh, the debt service let's reduce it to 1.749. They only reduced it by about maybe 20 million. Well, it does not make sense, because the platform on which this debt service is going to stand is on an economy, a declining population. That population is so important because we are the ones who pay for income tax, for sales tax, for property taxes. Those are the fiscal revenues with which creditors are expecting to be paid. So guess again, maybe these flawed economic forecasts really do not reflect what the reality could be for Puerto Rico. So be in tune. This is an important topic. Don't forget, to those of you who like our capsules, to give us a like in YouTube under the voice of Heidie Calero. Thank you.